Hi, love. In this video, I'm going to be talking about narcissistic abuse and 5 things that you need to understand about it. So, this is a very heavy topic. If you have experienced narcissistic abuse, this video is for you. As you know, it's a really painful and confusing and soul crushing thing to go through. And yeah, I want to provide some clarity and hopefully some comfort to you if you have gone through this really intense and painful experience. All right, so the first thing that you need to know is that you're not crazy. Even though you feel crazy and you've probably been driven crazy, you're not actually crazy. Okay, gaslighting, which is one of the main tools that is used by a narcissistic person, can actually drive you crazy. And this method of abuse is designed to get you to distrust yourself, your feelings, your thoughts, your experience, and your entire reality. So if you've been exposed to this gaslighting enough, you will start to literally feel insane. It completely dismantles your world and your understanding of the way things work, how you relate to yourself, and how you relate to everybody around you. So, yeah, you are going to feel crazy. You might even act crazy. Usually, people start isolating and shutting down, or usually when the gaslighting starts, the fight response is still pretty strong. And you're able to kind of stand up for yourself and argue your case or speak your grievances. But if they're well practiced narcissists, which most of them are, they will slowly whittle that away and make you feel like a really bad person for speaking up for yourself and your experience and call you crazy. And then after a while, you'll actually start to believe it. And when you start believing them, it's a downhill slide from there. It gets really, really slippery. Yeah, I'm sorry if you have experienced that in your life. I know how terrifying and painful it is, and it takes a long time to rebuild your spirit and your mind and your sense of self and your trust in yourself and others and your reality after enduring that kind of thing. But just know you're not actually crazy. Um, Definitely, if you have experienced that and you feel batshit crazy at the end of or during a relationship like this, just know that's completely normal. And please find support for it. Find a therapist who is a specialist in narcissistic abuse recovery. It will help you immensely. Also, check out Dr. Ramani's work, her YouTube channel, her Instagram, and her books, especially her newest one, It's Not You, are lifesavers. They can literally probably save your life, because if you have been exposed to gaslighting and narcissistic abuse long enough, it is also totally normal to experience suicidal ideation. Okay, the second thing that you need to know about narcissistic abuse is that most of your friends are not going to understand. This is one of the hardest things to experience when you are going through something like that, because likely the person who you are experiencing this kind of abuse with is very close to you. It tends to happen mostly with, a romantic partner. Sometimes it's a friend. So when you try to go to your friends for support, a lot of them are not going to understand what's going on. You might look like the crazy one for the reasons that we spoke about in the last little topic. I remember when I would speak to my friends or try to talk to my friends about what was going on, they didn't really believe me, or one of them would send me Abraham Hicks videos, or, people would be like, oh, you're just having problems or just not getting along. And, like marriages are supposed to be that way. And, or, if you're in some sort of spiritual community, you're supposed to forgive and not look at somebody negatively or not talk negatively about somebody. And this can be really hard when you are enduring that kind of psychological and emotional abuse. Obviously, physical abuse. Oftentimes, narcissistic abuse is they keep it more emotional and psychological if they're smart, because people can't see those scars or they don't know what to look for in that kind of okay, pardon me, I got a little bit choked up there. It was tender stuff, y'all. Yeah, so most people don't know what to look for in victims of narcissistic abuse because it's kind of a freaky thing, right? Um, like I said, the narcissist will try to dismantle your reality so much that you begin to feel crazy and appear as the crazy one. Now, if you're the one behind closed doors, you understand that no amount of good communication skills, no amount of calmness or communication tools are going to help. Like, I know in my experience, I felt like my fuse kept getting longer and longer and longer. Like, it took me longer to react, but it didn't matter how many tools or skills I would apply. The person, at one point, before I understood anything about this stuff, I was like, is this person just trying to start a fight with me? Like, I couldn't believe it, right? Like, I would have to constantly say, like, we're on the same side. I love you. We love each other, right? Like, let's talk about this. I don't want to fight you. I don't want to be at war with you. But what I didn't understand at the time is that person wanted a war with me. Like, they wanted me to react. They wanted me to become unhinged. So when those, like, what I call it baiting, like when you get baited over and over and over again and you finally pop, well, then you look bad. And that's probably what especially if you have mutual friends, they probably hear about that from the narcissistic person. And so, yeah, oftentimes trying to confide in your friends if they're mutual, it's going to be really hard. And it sucks because that's when you need your friends the most. Pretty much the only friend that you are going to be able to confide in is a friend that has already gone through this themselves. When I went through this, I didn't know anybody who'd gone through it. I did meet a woman who had gone through it, and she was very compassionate and would kind of giggle at me, when I was still doing the self-blaming thing. I did have some friends tell me to look into narcissism and do, the NARP, NAARP, Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Program. But I still didn't grasp it, right? Yeah, it's a really hard thing. And I'm sorry if you are having a hard time receiving support, because it's such a crazy, insane experience to go through, that it's hard to believe it yourself, right? So it's kind of understandable and sad, but it's understandable that it would be hard for other people who have never experienced this before to grok it. The third thing that you need to know about healing from narcissistic abuse is that it can be very lonely in your recovery, for reasons that I just expressed. You need to be your best friend. So, yeah, it's lonely. It's very lonely. There's a lot of time that is spent, I guess, off-gassing is a good word for it, or discharging the painful emotions that you've experienced. It's a very isolating experience by design. And since not a lot of people understand what's going on, it can be a very lonely recovery period. Thankfully, narcissism and narcissistic abuse has become more mainstream. It's become a more popular term. People are becoming more aware, and there are more tools and resources available for it out there, which is great. It was actually a pretty hard thing for me to find when I was going through it about 6 years ago. So there are a lot of communities nowadays for people who are healing from that particular kind of abuse. So definitely recommend like looking into certain communities, finding coaches, teachers, whoever you resonate with, whoever is helping you the most, like seeing if there are communities that you can get involved with to talk to people about this kind of thing. And also, again, finding a therapist who specializes in narcissistic abuse recovery is vital. The fourth thing that you need to know when healing from narcissistic abuse is that it's okay to feel like a victim. You were abused, and validating yourself is an essential part of your healing. It's true that victim mentality, playing the victim, aren't really good for us as a general way of life. That is true. Also, denying our victimhood can make things so much worse for us and take us so much longer to heal. If we try to be empowered and not be a victim when we are actually suffering with the wounds from deep abuse, then it can set us back a long time. I did that. I tend to run in more like spiritual circles. I know this. I'm being snarky, but yeah, it's the thing. Like you're not supposed to have a victim mentality, and I had a lot of people try to throw personal empowerment stuff at me, and all of that is so good and so essential after you've dealt with your victimization, okay? Because so much about narcissistic abuse, what goes on is that you're probably having like probably if you're experiencing narcissistic abuse, you are being abused and attacked either in covert, overt, subtle, grandiose ways with frequency, and you're being victimized. And when you're being usually see, I'm still trying to sugarcoat this, and it's just like nothing to sugarcoat here. Yeah, okay, so when this is happening and you try to speak up for yourself, what most commonly happens is that person shames you for it and calls you the problem, blame shifts, and then you end up apologizing to them for your reaction to their abuse. So like a narcissistic person will always shift to being the victim, right? That is their prerogative. They cannot be held accountable. They cannot take responsibility for their actions. And they always have to take the victim role in order to be free from that accountability. Okay, so that has put you in the position of a perpetrator even when you were actually being victimized, and it's important to reclaim that, at least for a while. You don't want to get stuck there, but if you never deal with that and you never accept that you were victimized and that you were in the victim position, then you'll get stuck, right? Like this happened to me. I got stuck, and I noticed that when I finally grieved what actually happened to me, because it happened to me. The hard thing about that is that there's a sense of powerlessness, right? It's easier to think that, oh, right, if I'm not the victim, then I actually have control. Like we want to feel like we have control and agency in our lives. Like that's what makes us feel safe. Being victimized, we lose that control and agency, and it can feel very scary. So when we go there and we accept our victimhood, there's a lot of grief that moves. And it's really hard. But what happens is, like, if we don't do that, we're constantly trying to get validated by all the people around us, and we wear them out, right? Like, in every conversation, we're like, but this is what happened. This is what happened. Like, can't you see what happened to me? Or even if you don't say that overtly, it's what's coming out in your energy. Like, that part of you that was victimized is, it's in distress and it's trying to be seen. It's trying to be noticed. So that doesn't happen again, right? It's a protective mechanism. So if you can give that to yourself, you need to give that to yourself, and understand and listen to the victimized part of you in order to have that settled, like have that healed and taken care of. And then you can move on to the more empowered and yeah, self-empowering states afterwards. But, like, it's okay to be a victim. If you were a victim, it's, yes, you were a victim, and that's okay. Okay, you can accept that. Okay, and one more point about, if you don't accept your victimization, you will continue to self-gaslight. Right? So the narcissistic person has gotten you to disbelieve your reality, disbelieve your senses, disbelieve yourself, and maybe probably the sense of self, like, of who you are as a person. If you don't recognize and acknowledge where you were victimized, you will continue to gaslight yourself. And this can create a lot of problems moving forward. Like, you won't trust yourself, you will become your own worst enemy. It can kind of create a psychotic split within you and even cause physiological illnesses later on. And it's like a hellscape to be in when you're constantly gaslighting yourself, right? You don't want to do that. So claim your victimhood. It's very important. It's okay. And the fifth thing that you need to know about healing from narcissistic abuse is that it takes time. It takes time to let go of and to release the harmful narrative that you took on. So, as you know, right, when you experience this, you begin to accept the narcissist's reflection of you. You begin to accept that you're a bad person, that it's all your fault, that you're fucked up, and that everyone can see how messed up you are, and that you're selfish, you don't know what it is to do anything good for humanity, you blah blah blah. Like, you begin to take on those really abusive things that they would say to you, and you begin to take it on as your sense of self, and it takes time to unwind that, and that's okay. It sucks, but it's okay that it takes time. One of the most helpful things that a therapist shared with me about what happens in a narcissistic relationship is that the narcissistic person they're so full of shame and self-hatred. And when they find somebody, who's usually more open, maybe a little bit too open and forgiving, compassionate, which are really beautiful qualities, but it, makes us susceptible to people who need a place to deposit their shame. So she shared with me how, the narcissist is usually so full of shame that they just dump it right into our systems. I don't know if that resonates for you. You can feel into your body and see if that's true for you. Like, did it feel like that? I know for me it did, wanting to be so open and, yeah, loving and caring with a person, and then because you trust them so much, right? Like, when you really love somebody, you trust them, and when they unleash, like, the shame on you, which is really their own sense of shame in themselves, but they personalize it and make it about you, right? It's like a relief for them. They're basically vomiting into you as a receptacle for that. And if you are empathic, if you do tend to take things in and take things on, as you probably do if you've experienced that kind of abuse, it takes time to get rid of that. It takes time to rewrite the narrative about yourself. I will say that one of the most helpful things that helped me do that was listening to belief tracks at night. So there are a few coaches online. It was actually Dylan James who introduced me to this method of what's the word, like reinstating my self-concept, was to listen to positive affirmations at night while you sleep and your subconscious is open. Definitely listen to the whole thing before you sleep so you know what's going in there, and if you agree to it, and if you want to download those tracks, then definitely do that. This is actually something I'm going to be doing on this channel, is providing tracks specifically for survivors of narcissistic abuse, so stay tuned to that. But what I found was that after a while, in those liminal states, right before you wake up, I could actually see these, it was like these metal plates of the narratives that I was given, like these terrible things that I thought about myself, but that I knew I picked up from, I knew where they came from. Like they came from this person, and I would just watch them fall off, like just shed off of me. And it was so liberating. And a lot of that had to do with just like putting opposing and positive affirmations, like what is actually true about myself, back in to kind of like push those harmful beliefs out of me that weren't even mine. And I don't know if you've seen the it's like there's some reels or TikTok videos out there where they talk about healing, and you have a glass of water and it's dark, it's full of mud, and the way that healing happens is they put it underneath a faucet basically, and there's new water coming in, and the water still stays brown, right, but it starts to overflow, and it takes a while, but gradually the water starts to turn lighter and lighter and lighter as this old murky water comes out of it. And it takes a lot of water coming in, but eventually the water in the glass becomes clear, right? It's all like replaced, or the murky water is displaced by the clear water coming through. Replaced, displaced, both. And it's really true. It's how it felt for me. It just takes a lot of time. And then, yeah, in the meantime, surround yourself with supportive people, listen to positive content, meditate, be kind to yourself, love yourself, do things that you love, rediscover things that you love, find new things that you love, and eventually you will become whole again, and that narrative that narcissistic person placed on you, like you'll be like, that's not even, you'll be able to laugh at it someday, I promise. Okay. Thank you for listening. If anything really resonated with you, or if you want to leave a comment and share your experience, please feel free to. And yeah, take care of yourself. I'm sending you a lot of love. All right, I'll see you in the next video.